Śrīla Prabhupada's departure was also perfect because he was chanting and hearing the holy names of God. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead was present at Śrīla Prabhupada's passing, just as he was at the celebrated passing away of Bhishma, who said, "Despite his being equally kind to everyone, he has graciously come before me while I am ending my life, for I am his unflinching servitor." As Lord Krishna came before Bhishma, assuring him and everyone else that Bhishma was returning home, was returning back to Godhead on leaving his body, so the Lord in his incarnation of Avatar, the Hare Krishna mantra, was present for Śrīla Prabhupada's departure. Śrīla Prabhupada's life had been dedicated to spreading the holy name to every town and village, and for a month he had been surrounding himself with the holy name. Passing away, he especially wanted to fill the room with devotees chanting Hare Krishna, and Krishna fulfilled that wish. Śrīla Prabhupada therefore departed under the most favorable circumstances possible, in the most sacred place, Vrindavan, surrounded by Vaishnavas chanting the holy name. An ideal spiritual teacher, Acharya, always acts in such a way that others may follow his example. As Srimad Bhagavatam states, these great souls who cross over the ocean of birth and death by taking shelter of the boat of the lotus feet of Krishna, miraculously leave the boat on this side for others to use. And Śrīla Prabhupada's disappearance, by its perfect example, afforded all conditioned souls the means for meeting the greatest of all dangers. An auspicious death is not merely a matter of psychological adjustment, so that one may die without regret or without becoming unduly upset. The real point is that at the time of death, the soul must leave the body and take its next birth. Only the Krishna-conscious soul can leave this world of birth and death and attain an eternal blissful life in the spiritual world. Therefore, one's life is tested at death. Śrīla Prabhupada Ādi-līlā ki. Text 61 through 63. Reading from Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta, chapter titled The Spiritual Masters, texts 61 through 63. I'll chant 61 and 62, and then we'll chant 63. Ishvara-sarūp bhakta-tanra adhishtan Bhaktir Hridoy Krishnera Statata Vishram. Text 62. Sadhavo Hridayang Mayang Sadhunang Hridayam Toham Badanyate Najananti Nahang Tebyo Managapi. And we'll all chant text 63 together. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavatas Tirtha Bhuta Swayang Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Swantak Stena Gadabrita. Please chant. Bhavad Vidha Bhagavata Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho Tirti Kurvanti Tirtani Swantak Tena Gadabrita. Tirtha Bhuta Swayam Vibho.
तीर्थभूतः स्वयं विभो तीर्थीकुर्वन्ति तीर्थानि स्वान्तहस्तेन कदाकृता.
Ladies. So we'll just chant the word for word for text 63, and then we'll continue the translations and purports for 61 and 62. Bhavat, your good self, Vida, like Bhagavata, devotees, Tirtha, holy places of pilgrimage, Bhutaha, existing, Swayang, themselves, Vibho, O Almighty One, Tirti Kurvanti, make into holy places of pilgrimage, Tirtani, the holy places, Swantakstena, being situated in their hearts, Gadabrata, by the personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we'll go back to 61 here. So this is the translation for 61. A pure devotee constantly engaged in loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord who is always seated in his heart. Purport: the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one without a second, and therefore He is all-powerful. He has inconceivable energies, of which three are principal. The devotee is considered to be one of these energies, never the energetic. The energetic is always the Supreme Lord. The energies are related to Him for the purpose of eternal service. A living entity in the conditioned stage can uncover his aptitude for serving the Absolute Truth by the grace of Krishna and the spiritual master. Then the Lord reveals Himself within his heart, and he can know that Krishna is seated in the heart of every pure devotee. Krishna is actually situated in the heart of every living entity, but only a devotee can realize this fact. Text 62. Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. Purport. This verse appears in Srimad Bhagavatam 9.468 in connection with the misunderstanding between Durvasa Muni and Maharaj Ambarish. As a result of this misunderstanding, Durvasa Muni tried to kill the king. When the Sudarshan Chakra, the celebrated weapon of Godhead, appeared on the scene for the devoted king's protection. When the Sudarshan Chakra attacked Durvasa Muni, he fled in fear of the weapon and sought shelter from all the great demigods in heaven. Not one of them was able to protect him, and therefore Durvasa Muni prayed to Lord Vishnu for forgiveness. Lord Vishnu advised him, however, that if he wanted forgiveness, he had to get it from Maharaj Ambarish, not from him. In this context, Lord Vishnu spoke this verse. The Lord, being full and free from problems, can wholeheartedly care for his devotees. His concern is how to elevate and protect all those who have taken shelter at his feet. The same responsibility is also entrusted to the spiritual master. The bona fide spiritual master's concern is how the devotees who have surrendered to him as a representative of the Lord may make progress in devotional service. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always mindful of the devotees who fully engage in cultivating knowledge of him, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. Text 63. Again, saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage. Because of their purity, they are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. Purport. This verse was spoken by Maharaj Yudhishthira to Vidura in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.13.10. Maharaj Yudhishthira was receiving his saintly uncle Vidura, who had been visiting sacred places of pilgrimage. Maharaj Yudhishthira told Vidura that pure devotees like him are personified holy places, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always with them in their hearts. By their association, sinful persons are freed from sinful reactions, and therefore wherever a pure devotee goes is a sacred place of pilgrimage. The importance of holy places is due to the presence there of such pure devotees. Om Jnana Tamandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurvanmilitamina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vatshalam Pangum Lankayate Gurum Yatkipatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Tirtharanam. Translations again. A pure devotee constantly engaged in the loving service of the Lord is identical with the Lord who is always seated in his heart. Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. Saints of your caliber are themselves places of pilgrimage because of their purity. They are constant companions of the Lord, and therefore they can purify even the places of pilgrimage. So it's interesting. All these verses, of course, are extremely important to the devotees who are sincerely trying to advance in the path of spiritual life. They take such instructions to heart. When they hear them, they don't try to file them someplace in some dark recess of their mind. They think about and meditate upon the words spoken by such transcendental personalities, because these words are themselves fully purifying. And so therefore it is also said, he reasoned ill who tells that Vaishnavas die when thou art living still and sound. A Vaishnava dies to live, and living spreads the holy name around. So we have a situation where it's very easy for those of us who have any experience in New York City to appreciate how Prabhupada himself was the Tirtha. It's not that Vrindavan is the Tirtha. Yes, of course Vrindavan is the Tirtha, as are the other Dhammas. But we see that because Krishna is there within the heart of the pure devotee, just like he's there in every living entity's heart. But what does it say there? It said Krishna does not recognize anyone else but his pure devotee. And so we see that in this situation, that specifically we have a situation where we can appreciate how much, just by the presence of a pure devotee, New York itself has become a holy place of pilgrimage. And people come from all over the world to visit Tompkins Square Park, to visit 2nd Avenue, to take darshan of Srila Prabhupada's shoes, and of course, the beautiful deities that he installed to oversee all of our activities in New York City. So this is a benediction that we cannot adequately give glory to. Its words fail us. But the experience itself is easily understood. Just like it's described, Prabhupada mentions that anyone who enters the precincts of Vrindavan, he automatically understands that there's an adjustment in the atmosphere. He appreciates that this is something, even if he has no other experience or contact with devotees or the Dham, just by entering into Vrindavan, because it is Krishna's place, he feels that this is something special. Just like materially, one may enter some place and feel some change in atmosphere or change in environment because it is evident through the gross material senses. So Vrindavan is such a place that when one enters into it, automatically his soul is enlivened. Because the soul is coming back to its natural place. So this upliftment aids one in executing spiritual activities. So therefore it is recommended that one should go to holy places like Vrindavan and Mayapur and Jagannath Puri, because so many saintly persons have purified that place. We, on the other hand, we simply go there to do what? Why does everyone go to a holy place for the most part? They go there to leave their sinful activities. They advertise. It's almost like, come to the Ganges and leave your sinful activities. Take a dip and become fully purified. But this is like the explanation Prabhupada gives for the Kartik Mena in Vrindavan. Those who are devotees don't need any additional incentive to go to Vrindavan. They already appreciate what is the nature of Vrindavan. But some of those, they advertise, no, come, it's a special month, you get 10,000 times the benefit. 10,000 times, 100,000 times. So it's like Prabhupada said, like a sale. You go to the sale, 50% off, all right, 75% off. So this type of incentive is not for the devotees who are firmly fixed in their relationship with the spiritual master, because they already know that just by serving the spiritual master, I'm already achieving all of these so-called benedictions. I don't need anything else. So therefore, one can execute his spiritual life anywhere according to the order of the spiritual master. He doesn't need that, I have to go to Vrindavan, I have to go here, I have to go there. No. Spiritual master has given us, that's why we call it Prabhu Datta Desh. Whatever the spiritual master has given you, that is your place of pilgrimage. In that place only, you will make the spiritual advancement that you so eagerly desire. Right? Everything else is a function of our own mind. I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go here, I want to go there. No, these are not the activities that will bring you to that level of, like it's described here, brother. The saints are my heart, and only I am their heart. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine. These are hints. They're not so subtle. So one is trying to make adjustments or arrangements by his own efforts, then that means that he's not contemplating clearly the orders of the spiritual master. And the spiritual master has given some instruction. You go here and preach. You do this and preach. This type of activity. So, for whatever reason, we try to make some adjustment that this is not suited to my, psychophysical proclivity, some odd analysis like this, that, I'm not suited for this type. I cannot do this service. Or I cannot do that service because. There's always a because there. And because, that is the sign of what? What's coming next? Justification, right? One has to justify within his own mind. Even the most abominable activities. It's like we see, if you, in a line of profession where you have to interview serial murderers, you think, how can anyone justify this activity? But yes, they do it. Perfectly justified within their minds. So how is that possible? So this is the nature of the influence of the material energy, that one can become so bewildered that even the most abominable things become justified. Mass murder, torture, unleashing horrible, whatever you want to call it, like plagues upon the earth. Yeah? All justified in somewhere, someone's mind. And of course, those people try to get together. They have a sangha, the evil, and we always see this too in the movies. So there's always an evil syndicate behind everything. They have whatever they want to call it. But there's always some evil syndicate, lurking behind. And so, yeah, we have the three modes of material nature. They're not inherently or intrinsically evil. They are what they are. But depending on our mental and spiritual condition, we have an opportunity to engage ourselves in such a way, as you surrender unto me, I reward you accordingly, Krishna says. So he says it doesn't matter what these things are, what these modes are. Yes, they're there. But the devotee feels himself fully, how can you say, able to handle such things if he's been properly initiated into the path of spiritual life. He feels protected. Just like they have the Narayan Kavacha. You chant these mantras and it gives you some appreciation of the power and potency of the holy name. We're chanting a much more suitable for Kali Yuga, the Maha Mantra. It's like we're hearing so many stories. Prabhupada is relating from 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam about Ajamil, and how simply by chanting Narayan, in Philadelphia, actually, we were there in the class, and they were reading, because 6th canto wasn't printed at that time, so they were reading from Prabhupada's transcripts and edited manuscripts. And so the Nitai was reading, and he mentioned, and so that Ajamil called out, Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. Prabhupada stopped him and says, why 3 times? It says 3 times? It says 3 times? It's 3 times? No, only once. Only once. He said, what is the need for 3 times? The holy name alone is so powerful. Nama Chintamani Krishna Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. But somehow or other, it became in there. So Prabhupada was always careful in this regard to see. And he said, yes, only once. So we have, we're chanting how many times? 1,728 mantras is our daily obligation. All right? And that, in one sense, it seems insignificant. Haridas Thakur was chanting 3 lakhs. Who can chant even 1 lakh? It seems to be so difficult. 64 rounds. Thinking, who can chant 64 rounds? But yet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead doesn't accept any offering from anyone who is not chanting 64 rounds, 1 lakh. But the spiritual master is so kind that he can impart the essence by his direct and intimate relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He makes the adjustment. It's not that this has become some, how can you say, outdated method. No. Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's words are 100% accurate. The Supreme Lord is not accepting anything if someone is not chanting 64 rounds. But what did Srila Prabhupada do? Prabhupada said, okay, they'll chant 16 rounds, and I'll accept all the other responsibilities. And so sometimes we think that these spiritual masters in the past, they didn't have to deal with such demonic disciples. These disciples were all coming from very high elevated families. When Prabhupada came here, it's all this rejects from society. So how much sinful activity the spiritual master has to accept? He accepts everything. He accepts everything. So what does that say to those who have some lack of appreciation, who cannot understand the sacrifice that Srila Prabhupada made? How he described here that, Prabhupada left Vrindavan, the most sacred place, to come here, fully convinced by the order of his spiritual master. For our benefit, he expressed sometimes say, why did you send me here? He writes the famous poem, in such a place like this, who will accept this message? And then apparently it seemed that I'm alone. There's no one here. All right? And he's celebrating first Janmashtami. And there's, obviously it's, but his determination, this was also him, just like the final lesson. So they have the final lesson and the first lesson. The first lesson, Prabhupada's giving some understanding of how a pure devotee, what is his mood? He's fully dependent on Krishna. If you like, you can make me dance, make me dance, make me dance, as you like. So this is not some abstract, difficult to appreciate conception. This mood of humility and full dependence on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this is all of our efforts to try to come to that stage. That in whatever else there may be, these things are all small obstacles to overcome. Simply by going back to our basics, to the chanting 16 rounds and following the 4 regulated principles, everything is reset. Prabhupada said, whenever have someone had a problem, he said, they just come back. Immediately they reclaim their original status as a devotee. It doesn't require any ritual purification. Doesn't have to go and pay some pundit X amount of rupees in order to become cleansed. Right? This is what they used to do. If you had some problem, if you did something wrong, you go to some priest and they would extract some fee. Yeah. Even in America, that's, if you're a Christian, you just go into the confessional and you confess. And you have to do some penance. You have to chant some mala. I remember well, chant X number of rosaries, an X number of prayers, and then that you're absolved. Absolution. So even they're not so mercenary that they have to take anything in exchange. Right? But everywhere else you go, in some place like that, you have to perform some severe, flagellistic places like in some certain rituals in certain religions in certain countries. Actually, it's a common thing. And who knows? Self-flagellation. Everyone knows what that is? Self-flagellation? No? About to come. You whip yourself. They have these whips, many times, and they imitate some, severe punishment, accepting this pain on behalf of whatever. But this torture of the body is not recognized by any bona fide religion. It's all concoction. What is the benefit? Who benefits? Individually, maybe they're thinking, I'm getting some absolution. But how does it benefit the world? This is not para upakar. This is not what real saints and sages have carefully passed down to us, intact, so that 5,000 years later, we're reading the same purport, the same essence. So we have this, we're situated in obviously one of the most holy places in the world, because one of the most saintly persons came specifically to New York. So this is a remarkable opportunity, and it deserves full attention. not some passing mention somewhere in a book or something, but those who are actually awake, they will derive the most benefit because they can understand how important this particular, just like there are devotees who say, they will never leave Vrindavan. So if one wants to make such a vow to never leave New York, this is not an unnecessary or irrational choice. We can understand that Srila Prabhupada was very concerned. I mean, there's so many temples. Wherever a person is, he can make the most advancement in that particular place. He's thinking, no, I have to go someplace else. I cannot do it here. I cannot do it in Cleveland. I cannot do it in Timbuktu. No. There's all material considerations. There's no such inhibition. Someone may think, well, it's easier for me. But that just means that it's easier for me to surrender in a situation which is not so austere, or not so this, or not so that. And yes, those adjustments are there. But Kaivalyam Narakarate, if I can do this in hell, then why can't I do it in New York City? Does it make any sense? No. But yet, sometimes we have that tendency to jump around. Prabhupada wasn't very keen on that. He liked that the devotees, he would appreciate that the devotee had stayed in one place. This is, and you can see this repeatedly, how he expressed his appreciation. Why? Because it shows the dedication and determination. And what else? Conviction. And all these things are necessary for advancing in spiritual life. So if you're lacking one of them, it's going to be harder. So find a place where you can fully dedicate yourself in order to the order of the spiritual master. If it's not in this place, then find that place. But don't go to one place and then go to another place and then go to another place and then go to another place. What's the point? What are you looking for? If you're looking for pure devotional service, it can be found in any temple established by Srila Prabhupada. Established by Srila Prabhupada and his mission. Not just personally. Otherwise, someone could say, oh yeah, only New York and San Francisco. And then London. There's a few temples where Prabhupada took special interest. These were the anchors by which everything was, from that point, everyone disembarked from that and then spread out. Like from New York, it spread out to San Francisco, and then to London, and then to other points. So all these things are documented, and we can see, if we look at it objectively, historically, how these things transpired. It wasn't haphazardly. Prabhupada had a complete, his faith was the method. It wasn't that he stayed in Vrindavan for X number of years and filled up notebooks, with how an outline, how he should do this. No. Everything was in his heart, the order of the spiritual master. That's all that was required. So, if anything, we should be concentrating on this purification, because by that purification, we were looking at that little clip that I posted, how Yogeshwar Prabhu was mentioning very clearly that as one advances, Prabhupada's instructions become more clear. Prabhupada's personality becomes more clear. Who is this person? Who is this great saint that walked among us? Who has that? Who can say that? Who's so fortunate that we have everything in such close proximity? 2,000 years later, people are talking about, someone who came to some place and made 12 disciples. And we have here a movement that in such a short amount of time, it's inconceivable what has been done and how it has transformed millions of lives, not thousands, millions of lives in such a short time. So who can imagine what it will be like in 2,000 years? Still within the golden age of Kali Yuga. Right? 10,000 years, of which 500 have passed. So the golden age of Kali Yuga, but it's dependent in one sense on those who are surrendered to maintain it. How many temples have already closed due to this one almost closed? And they say, no, we were just going to move it. No, you don't. You can't. You don't close something down. If you have something so-called successful, you may not understand it, but you're not the arbiter of the success. And you have no business to try to alter the course of history with your small, some people are thinking that I know everything better than everyone else. This is a great disease. What is that? Atmavan manyate jagat. Atmavan manyate jagat. I think the world thinks like me, or the universe. And so this is a very difficult position. Atmavan manyate jagat. So we should avoid it at all costs. This myopic view of devotional service and my relationship, my position within that mission. It's a big boat. There's the analogy that the spiritual master is the captain and the Vedas are the favorable breezes, but the boat is ISKCON. So we have to carefully preserve it and plug the leaks, make sure it's on course, make sure that the favorable breezes are there, that the Vedas are not being neglected, because that can happen. Things start to deteriorate. And then all of a sudden, the boat is just sitting there in the doldrums. Everyone know what the doldrums are? Some words for you to look up. Doldrums. Yeah? It means a situation where there's no wind. For a sailing ship that functions on that, the doldrums was a death knell. You just ended up, you couldn't move any place, you're stuck, you exhaust all your provisions, and then you die. You jump overboard, swim with the sharks. So we can't let ISKCON languish in the doldrums. It has to be dynamism, it has to be activity, it has to be constant endeavor to push on the preaching movement. More and more involvement. It doesn't require some innovation separate from what Srila Prabhupada has given. Whatever he has given is sufficient, but we have some initiative, we're all trying to please. Sometimes there's some inspiration. But don't try to invest too much in something which will have little return. There has to be palam parachite. You start something, you judge it by the results. It's not that, this is not working, but since it's my project, I'm going to keep doing it at all costs. No, this is not practical. You have to judge it by the results. It works or it doesn't work. Prabhupada would not tolerate some blind following. No. So it's better, of course, to stick with what we have. Prabhupada said, if you cannot expand, at least maintain. Very simple, direct, nothing complex, doesn't require some special extrapolation to understand. No, he said, if you cannot expand, at least maintain. So therefore, maintenance is categorized in the mode of goodness. So that's why cleanliness is next to godliness. Because cleanliness and maintenance are synonymous. How can you say you're maintaining a building if it's not clean? What are you maintaining? What does that mean? So cleanliness is next to godliness, and maintenance in the mode of goodness. All these things are there, and Prabhupada would constantly relate them in various ways for our simple minds to understand. Because after all, he was dealing with this. Who can imagine? If I send you out with a bunch of bhaktas on Sankirtan, who can you imagine the amount of mental energy required to maintain a group of individuals who have barely any knowledge of spiritual life, but have just come, maybe even just sentimentally, become attracted. And you have to guide them in every aspect of spiritual life. It's a great endeavor. It can become quite tiring. Maybe you become frustrated. Maybe you turn the van around and go back to the temple and say, I can't deal with this. These guys are a bunch of neophyte, kanishtas. So, but Prabhupada didn't think like that. He came and tried, we read in the Līlāmrita some of the things that they were doing, going up and using Prabhupada's shower, not just using his shower without second thought, without any sense of decorum or etiquette. They were using his towel, Who can, just, for us it's unthinkable. But Prabhupada had to deal with this. He had to deal with this. So many misconceptions, so many offenses, but he didn't take them. This is also, the place of pilgrimages doesn't say, you have too many offenses, you can't come here. You get turned back like a force field. Someone who's so sinful that they're not allowed to even dip their toe in the Ganges. No. Spiritual master accepted everything. So obviously, he is like following the footsteps of Caitanya-caritāmṛta. He's patita pavana. So when we're praying in this way, we see that the acharyas, patita pavana hetu taba avatar, mosamo patita prabhu napayavya. This should be our thinking, that there's no one more fallen than I. Therefore, this is my qualification. This is my qualification. That there is no one more fallen than I. So we have to think in such a way, but act as the most effective tool, in the spiritual master's arsenal. So that will please Prabhupada. That will please his senior disciples who are continuing to try to push forward despite any and every obstacle. And there are many, still, so many there. And so you can tell those who are sincere by their continued dedication and determination. Otherwise, yes, sometimes one has exhausted himself. He thinks, I cannot do this anymore. Yes, that's there. But maybe there's something else that one can do. So one has to be quite careful in his thinking process, because Krishna is situated in his heart. And so he's recognizing that there's something that needs to be overcome, some obstacle in the mind. And so he will continue to give a test until you pass it. So it's like, how many times did Arjuna have to take the road test? Only 2 or 3? 2? Only 2. Bhakta-vatsala had to do 5 times. 5 times. So you'll keep getting the test until you can pass it. So one who's intelligent thinks, no, well, let me pass it at least the second time. So I made a mistake the first time, okay. Let me learn from that mistake and pass it the next time. That's the meaning of apichet sudaracharo, not that repeatedly one commits offense. Yeah, it happens. The material world is that's why we say it. It's the material world. Just in that phrase, we understand everything that's included in that anything can happen, right? Prabhupada said in Mayapur when they were discussing that pastime of Haridas Thakur, and the devotees laughed when Prabhupada presented that Haridas Thakur told the prostitute that you just sit down and then after I chant my rounds, then we can engage. So the devotees laughed because it seemed a little funny, the setting of the scene. And Prabhupada said, no, don't laugh. It is not funny. And I think the whole room became silent, dead drop sound. And he said, you cannot do this. And he said, I cannot do this. So this is a situation. We don't put ourselves in compromising positions. You avoid them. You avoid them. It's just like when so many people have become distracted and deviated from the path simply by having immediate access to the internet. Because it is just a dark well. We talk about the dark well. That's the dark well. The dark well of material existence, the dark well of sense gratification. Everything is there. And people, they treat it very casually, not understanding the danger. That in this one device is the potential destruction of my spiritual life. If I, and of course, in the material world, the problematic attraction is sex life. And this is, and sex life has 7 forms, of which, in this age we see that's not just the gross, but the so many subtle varieties are all there in great prominence, and everywhere you turn, everywhere you look. I was listening to one lecture today, and Prabhupada just casually threw out that in the spiritual world there is no sex life. And of course that should be understood. It's an inferior pleasure. It's not, giving up such rasavargya rasopyasa param jasvanavartate. It's an inferior taste. Well, of course, why would it be in the spiritual world? But not every other, but many religions we see that's their main selling point. Go have unlimited sex. Because they're thinking of the heavenly planets. They're not thinking of the spiritual world. It's very limited. They only have knowledge from very limited sources, from very limited realized individuals who could only give them what they themselves had limited realization of. So therefore there's this idea of getting X number of and it's just inconceivable, actually, when you think about it. Inconceivable. Such an inferior philosophy. But yet it's there. So we have to understand things in context. Not that we just simply denigrate or dismiss. We have to understand, how has that come about? How? And what does Prabhupada say? Poor fund of knowledge. What is that? Incomplete knowledge of the complete. That's a term that I remember hearing Prabhupada. Incomplete knowledge of the complete. And so therefore it is understandable. And we don't waste our time trying to, we're interested in those souls who have already come through so many birds. Bahanam Jamanamante Gyanavam Prapadyante. They're there. We go on book distribution. Couple walked in to the store. Matanga was there yesterday, and they walked out with a set of Bhagavatams. Did you mention that this morning in on the bookstores? No? So this is something that, that's why Prabhupada, that's why we have a temple here. And within the temple, so many varieties of spiritual activities. For those, you see, some people are just attracted to the deities. They come in and they spend hours and they just sit there. But they have no attachment to the words, to the Srimad Bhagavatam or the Bhagavad Gita or to any other type of preaching. They don't want to hear it. We used to run into these people all the time, and Prabhupada would joke about it. No, I know Krishna. I know Krishna. And so therefore, we take the opportunity to give a special attention to those who are submissive and inquisitive, because it means that somehow or other they've come to this position due to this agyata sukriti, their past pious activities. So yes, why am I going to unnecessarily? It says, preaching the glories of the holy name to those with no faith. It becomes offensive. Because if it means you don't understand, who to preach to, who not to preach to. You haven't risen to that level. This is the very basic madhyamadhikari. Who is devotee, who is non-devotee. Of course, Uttamadhikari, he makes no distinction. But he has the potency to make everything, to adjust everything. Which is why Prabhupada could come with people who had no knowledge of anything and elevate them. Special mercy. Special mercy. So we're very fortunate to be here in New York City, in the association of Śrī Radha Govinda, Srila Prabhupada, and all of his sincere followers. Because this is, this holy place of pilgrimage needs to be preserved and maintained. And therefore, we have our service outlined for us. And anyone who wants to can continue in this way without any interruption. He can just, he'll be completely fulfilled by Krishna within his heart. He won't have any needs or wants outside of his service. He'll be completely satisfied. But that's not something artificial. So we should pray for that, though. That let me be fully surrendered. Let me have no other desire other than to serve the mission of the spiritual master. Otherwise, what is that? What are those other desires? To puja, pratishta, some profit, distinction, adoration, and all the varieties within those three categories. Profit means, well, what's a profit? Brahmachari has no profit. Brahmacharini has no profit. Their profit is to please the spiritual master, and how he reciprocates with them is this rasavargam, rasoprasva, provides a higher taste. You cannot buy that higher taste. You cannot exchange some credits for it. I did this, now let me exchange it for this. No. It has to be given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the agency of the spiritual master. That higher taste. And once having it, he'll never lose it if he's careful. He has to protect it. But that's why you see devotees come back again and again, even after many, many years. Rasagraha, because they cannot forget that rasa. It was the sweetest thing they ever had. And they realize that in the back of their mind. It's that this is what I'm actually looking for. But somehow or other. So we don't want to fall into that category of, just losing something which we have already achieved. All right? So guard it, protect it, the devotional creeper at all costs. Maintain association with those who are similarly engaged and whose conviction is also firm. Because this will help you to maintain that steady advancement in spiritual life. Don't go looking for easy association. Easy association means no expectations. Nobody cares. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I'm staying up late, I'm not doing everything properly. But this person, he doesn't mind, so therefore I associate with him. No, so don't. This is easy association. It's not. I did no effort. If there's someone whose association you'd really desire, like the spiritual master, you can't go to be the servant of the spiritual master and carry along some bad habits, staying up late, sleeping in. No. Spiritual master needs you 24/7. Prabhupada said, I don't like my disciples sleeping. Would seem to be an odd thing to say. I don't like my disciples sleeping. He said that to the servant who was having difficulty knowing how to arrange his schedule accordingly. Prabhupada said, oh, you're up? Okay. Because he was trying to pretend to be asleep because he didn't know what to do. And Prabhupada said, yes, I don't like my disciples sleeping. So we have to appreciate the Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, he said, we don't advertise, but that is our goal. To become free from those eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. To become completely free from those activities. He said, but we don't go around advertising that. But it's a fact. So any questions or comments? I see Jayananda is ready with the mic. And there's Matunga, who's coming closer so that I can actually hear it, not reverberating through the acoustic dampers of the temple room.
Hare Krishna.
Adi Bol.
Do you hear me? nicely?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
So one comment and one question. Thank you very much for stressing the point of Prabhupada Dash and the instructions of the spiritual master. And I can confirm from my own experience, the more and more I'm realizing that there's nothing else outside of the instructions of the spiritual master. Everything is there. The thing that we've been always hankering is just there, nowhere else. And I'm very fortunate that I have received many instructions from my spiritual master in detail. So, yeah, the more the better. And then the other thing I wanted to ask, throughout my devotional life, I've seen there's a class of devotees, especially brahmacharis. They like to take up austerities. They're pretty much in taking vows and fasting and so forth. Certain type of devotees, they like to do that, which is nice. It's inspiring many times to see. But at the same time, many times you can see some individuals, they're bringing it to the extreme level, which resembles self-flagellation, like you were explaining in your previous thing. So, what is the proper balance? How to understand these austerities? How to do them properly and get them authorized?
Well, for us, we have some examples. And we have, of course, our fasting days through the Vaishnava calendar. We don't have to make up some fasting days. You have Bhishma Panchak, you have Nirjal, you have so many opportunities to fast. But nothing should interfere with one's service. It's not that the pujari says, well, I can't go on the altar today because I'm fasting. Or I'm too weak because of fasting. Or something related to this activity, self-imposed, self-flagellation. And one is doing it. What is he doing it for? He's thinking, oh, I'm going to make some extra advancement. I'm going to become a better, bigger devotee. I'm going to be seen by others to be austere or advanced. So those have to be immediately discarded. Our society is not meant for this independent, doesn't matter if it's material profit, distinction, adoration, or spiritual profit, distinction, or adoration. This is, so, simplicity, Prabhupada gave us, and sometimes it's taken out of context, but simple for the simple at heart, difficult for the crooked. Simple for the simple at heart. So it doesn't require to adopt anything separately. We had so much association with Prabhupada, we never once saw him doing anything like fasting for something. No, never. We never heard of Prabhupada, I'm not going to translate today. I'm just going to be in my room chanting. No, never, not one time. So why would we, Prabhupada said that term, don't try to be a better spiritual master than your spiritual master. And so if one is thinking like that, then you can appreciate that, yes, why am I trying to You know, if it's actually going to, you know, if Prabhupada said, you know, feed a cold, starve a fever. Okay, it's a simple instruction. It's nothing, you know, it's a common sense thing. Because why would I do that? Because I want to get back to my service quicker. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to artificially feel myself superior to my other God brothers and God sisters. Oh, I can fast and you can't. What is that? I can eat less than you. Usually we say, no, I can eat more than you. In the old days, in ISKCON, it was who can eat the most. How many globulins could you eat at one time? Yeah. Not how austere you could be. No, that wasn't. We don't see that. I mean, we don't see. Maybe someone remembers, because I'm not a Caitanya-caritāmṛta scholar, but we have one sitting right here in the form of Ram Roy. Do we see any place where in Caitanya-caritāmṛta where Lord Chaitanya is advocating that one should fast for something or to follow the rules, the ritualistic performance of Chaturmas?
There's the case of Raghunath Das Goswami, but he was a special case.
He was following Chaturmas 24/7, 365, practically speaking.
But
you know, only eating.
His renunciation, Raghunath Das Goswami, was based on his entering deeper into the pure devotional service of Lord Chaitanya and Swarup Damodar.
Yeah, and if you can write volumes of literature like Raghunath Das Goswami, then certainly, you know, and that's Prabhupada did say that. He said, eat less and sleep less. Eat less and sleep less if you want to do, someone's complaining, I don't have enough time to read. So this, in that sense, it's, I don't have enough time to write. So if one is engaged like that, yes, then eating less and sleeping less is authorized. If you're going to produce volumes of literature which is going to uplift humanity. We need more Raghunath Das Goswamis, but they have to show it, not just, what is that? Probably use those two terms, following and imitating. What is that again? Krishna Kripa, what are those two words again? Anukara and Anusara. Anukara and Anusara. So imitating is not good. Following is good. So if we want to follow in the footsteps, then you have to follow in all the footsteps, not just halfway. I'm just going to follow Raghunath Das Goswami's diet, but I'm not going to do the service part of it. I'll just leave that behind. And I use it as an excuse. And Mother Janaki has a question. Oh, you had another? Okay.
That should be my
I didn't know what that meant. I thought. Okay.
The point of going here and there, how it's not good for your individual spiritual life. Teamwork makes the dream work. So especially when the dream that's trying to be accomplished, such as New York, which is the big enchilada, so it's not very, makes it kind of tough on the people who stay when every other people are coming and going, and I want to do this and I want to do that. That's a comment. About New York, the mercy is greater when the need is more. So for those who are, aficionados and seeing where the greatest ecstasy or the greatest happiness, that's one thing to look at. It's the Christmas marathon now, the Prabhupada marathon, the last 2 weeks, coming into the last 10 days. So I know when I was a kid, that's everything we heard all the time. This is the last part of the December marathon. It's the most important time of the year, or best time of the year for distributing.
Yeah.
Prabhupada was in New York for 15 months continuously. 15. I just did a 72nd Street tour a few days ago, and I discovered something, or I overlooked something, which I'd like to say, was that when Prabhupada moved into his own apartment at 100 West 72nd Street, he was free from the Mishra Society in terms of having to be in his Hatha Yoga studio, but I just found out that he still had to continue walking back and forth to the 33 Riverside Drive apartment
Yeah.
to bathe and cook. So that was for 5.5 months straight.
Freezing cold in the winter.
Coldest and snowiest winter on record.
Yeah.
So those are some thoughts.
For a nice,
Anything you want to comment on?
yeah, Mother Janaki. Yeah, I know anyone who's been on that west side, when the wind comes up from the Hudson, knows that it cuts right to the bone. And Prabhupada was doing all that in those white rubber shoes that he wore the soles out, that he had to line with cardboard to insulate. Yeah, and those shoes are right there. Yes, Mother Janaki.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for a nice class. Can you hear me? I have one appreciation, one reflection, and then one question. I was appreciating text 62, that in the purport, it says, "Saints are my heart, and only I am their hearts. They do not know anyone but me, and therefore I do not recognize anyone besides them as mine." And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, "The Lord, being full and free from problems, can wholeheartedly care for his devotees. His concern is how to elevate and protect all those who have taken shelter at his feet. And this responsibility is entrusted to the spiritual master." And I was thinking about like how important devotee care in ISKCON is right now. It's like really a big thing. And I was thinking too that sometimes when I hear this language, like the text before, it's talking about you have to be a pure devotee, constantly engaged, like always thinking. And then even in this, I was thinking that, you know, this responsibility of protecting and elevating others is given to the spiritual master. Sometimes when I hear that language, I think, it's not me. I'm not a pure devotee and I'm not a spiritual master, so how can I relate to this? But with some intelligence, also, you can know that anyone who knows the science of Krishna consciousness and is acting as an instrument to give it to others, that is the spiritual master. And being in the preaching movement, or Sankirtan movement, then we all should aspire to become spiritual masters and be able to protect and elevate others. But my reflection was that if we have to be full and free from problems first. We have to be satisfied with whatever service we're doing, and then we have to be free from problems. And when you were talking about the importance of hearing, like Bhagavatam, it made me think of, sometimes we recite that verse before Bhagavatam class, Nasta prayesh bhajeshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttamasloke
Bhaktir Bhavati
Bhaktir
Naishti.
Bhavati Naishtiki. Yeah, and by how regular attendance almost completely destroys all that is troublesome to the heart. And so I was thinking how important it is that we make sure that we're engaged in a way that is satisfying, so we feel full, and how we're constantly hearing. So that was my reflection. My question is that you brought up Atmavan Manyate Jagat, and I was thinking that that's a really, really like big obstacle in devotees cooperating. I think it should be like this. No, I think it should be like this. And suddenly, well, I'll do my own thing, and I'll go do my own thing. And so, practically, when we see that that's there, and it's tough because we're all pursuing truth. You know, we all think like, no, Shastra says this, and it should be like this, and I've been doing this for so long, whatever. It should be like this. Then how do we come together? When we see it, we might be experiencing it, but how do we actually make it work when that disease is there?
Good question. Thank you for that. From what we've experienced, success and failure, is that ultimately when we have the unified mission as given by the spiritual master, then there automatically such differences are reconciled. It's not always obvious what is the mission, because there are sub-missions. We have deity worship, we have book distribution, we have congregational preaching. So within all of those areas of engagement, one should certainly find that place where he feels he can invest his time and effort, feeling himself useful, that nimitta matram bhava savyasachin, to just become an instrument. So it's that instrumentality. One looks to see who else has that share, like cow protection. Cow protection is not for everyone. Working on a farm project is not for everyone. But everyone who's on the farm project has to be unified in their mission. They have to all, it's not that now I'm on this farm project, but I want to go on traveling Sankirtan. Why did you come to a farm project? You can do that anyplace else. But what you can do on a farm project is all these activities. And so therefore we try to focus. And the same thing here, we don't bring cows up onto the roof in order to start some goshala up there, because Prabhupada said we're in the congested cities for preaching. This is our duty. We don't want to get distracted. If anyone's ever maintained animals, he knows it's a full-time job. There's no vacation. You can't just say, well, I'm not going to milk this cow for a week. I'm going to go on traveling Sankirtan. No, you can't do that. It doesn't work. So everyone has to be focused in his area of concern. That Prabhupada, the Desh doesn't also just mean a place. We use it like that because Desh means country. But it also means that mission which I have accepted on behalf of the spiritual master. And that could be book distribution. And that could mean that I'm traveling to all the temples, enlivening devotees how to do book distribution. That's my Prabhupada Desh. The instruction I receive from the spiritual master becomes my life and soul. It becomes my everything. And of course, that everything is that wherever I am with him through that order. I'm not separate. And so Prabhupada came, he said, I never felt any separation from my spiritual master. And how could he say that? Not just time, when Prabhupada came in 1965, his spiritual master had already been gone for 30, how many years? 31 years. 30 years. In 1936, so 29 years, because 1936 and 1965. So his spiritual master had already been absent from his immediate vision for 29 years. But yet, he was as convinced on that day that he stepped off the Jaladuta as he was when he stepped on the Jaladuta, when he stepped out of his ashram. So all these things, all this conviction, this is what propels you in spiritual life, this conviction. Utsaha nishtaya daryat tat tat karma pravartanat. So again, Rupa Goswami is saving us in so many ways by telling us enthusiasm, firm conviction, patience. So if we don't have those things, if somehow or other we've left them out, and you can, it's like building a house. You cannot leave out part of the foundation. Every architect knows that, right, Chaitanya? Right? You cannot skip this step. So we have to be very careful that, am I actually cultivating this, enthusiasm? Practically it's free. Prabhupada said, even if you don't want to dance, dance, and the bliss will come. So enthusiasm is free. If the kirtan is going, you can stand on the side, in the back, put your hands in your pockets if you like, that's fine. But then all you're doing is, you're excluding yourself from the free enthusiasm and free bliss. It's there for the taking. And firm conviction, yes, one has to be determined. He has to know, I'm going to follow these four. What did Prabhupada say when he handed the beads? And what are the four regulated principles? And the devotees would repeat it, because that's your firm conviction. I'm never going to violate that vow. And patience, yes, it's not immediate. The example of the young woman who just gets married, and she's thinking, I want a baby, but she has to wait 10 months. So there's patience. So everything is there. Everything will be there. There's no doubt. We've seen it. It's documented. We're reading it every day. Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta, everything else. But still we're thinking, I can't succeed, or it's not for me. It was for them, but it's not for me. So Krishna, the universal principle of sarvasya chaham riddhi sanivishto, it's not working for me somehow or other. Krishna is not revealing it. If he's not revealing it, you have to examine, you have to fine tune. In the old days we had shortwave receivers and you had multiple tuning knobs. You think it's not just that you spin the dial and you get to the station you want. No, first you get in close proximity, and then you have fine tuning, which is this inner bandwidth, because it's broad frequencies and you have to really kind of make that adjustment. And on both sides is static. So it's called signal and noise. All right? So you have to, by fine tuning, you eliminate the noise and you amplify the signal. And so we want to amplify the signal. We want to hear, what is Krishna telling me? I have to listen. What is he telling me? And if you're having a hard time hearing, then you have to think, okay, let me chant my rounds in the association of the devotees. Let me see their conviction to try to get some of their, how can you say, enthusiasm and their patience, because I don't have enough of my own in order to execute. So this way, there's so many ways that we can accomplish the goal, which is to go back home, back to God, as described in all the scriptures, to go back home, back to God. And we don't have to make any extra endeavor. This is the key. Prabhupada said you just have to follow. But who knew that following was so hard, right? Who knew? But it's easier in the association of devotees. Therefore, Prabhupada said, the temple is for making devotees. It's for making devotees, it's for keeping devotees, it's for protecting devotees. It's like you said, the spiritual master, he's looking out for the devotees. How the devotees who have surrendered to him as a representative of the Lord may make progress in devotional service. Well, here it is. He gave us this temple. He gave us Radha Govinda. He gave us Radha Krishna, the first deities in America. He gave us so many things. They had other deities, but these are the first Radha Krishna deities. Jagannath was there in San Francisco in different ways, and but they didn't know exactly how everything was done. I mean, who knew that you had to install deities? You had to go through all these things. The Pratishta. Who knew? And Prabhupada had to show us everything. And so it's not. We just have to follow. It comes down to that. Why do they call us Rupanugas or Raganugas? We're not on the Raganuga platform, but we're following the footsteps. And also Prabhupada Anugas. So it indicates that we are followers. At some point, one may become a spiritual master, and in that sense he'll be a leader, but he can only be a leader if he was a follower. And you can see sometimes those who were good followers, because then they're good leaders. And conversely is also true. Those who are not good followers are not good leaders. So don't follow someone who is not a good follower of the spiritual master. That person, you have to see his dedication, his determination. And we have many examples on both ways. So we have so much to do on Sunday to prepare the temple for the guests. And we want to make it as clean and as inviting as possible. Why do we, sometimes we forget what Prabhupada said, to follow all the little rules and regulations. But it's not just the little rules and regulations, it's also the things that make a temple a temple. When guests come into a temple, universally they say, this place smells so nice. It smells like no other place. So immediately their senses are purified. Immediately, because it's prasadam. We take that incense that was offered to the Lord and we put it out there, and it has a spiritual effect that's tangible. Pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam, susukam kartam avyam. So this whole philosophy is practically realized. The king of Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pravitramidamuttamam Pratyakshabhagamam. Knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It's everlasting and joyfully performed. So this is where we're introducing everyone who walks into the building to that verse, whether they know it or not. But they all have an equal opportunity. Outcome not guaranteed, but they all have an equal opportunity just by stepping foot in the temple. And so that is our endeavor. That's why we conduct the Sunday feast. Because if not for the Sunday feast, I wouldn't be here. You know, I can say that for many others, the same holds true. You know, the Sunday feast just introduce you to the spiritual world. Literally introduce you to the spiritual world. And then we can try to compartmentalize everything and how it is that the spiritual master has created this environment that's unlike any other. Unlike any other. You cannot get this anyplace else. You cannot fake it. We've been to temples that are so-called temples. And they're lifeless. Absolutely lifeless. Nothing there. And you can sense it. And somehow or other, but you know, people are attracted to the manifest aspect of the deity, but not to the internal aspect. That the deity is there to accept our service, not for our, what did Srila Bhaktisiddhanta say? I exercise. Everyone knows that story? About the devotee, you know, that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada Goswami was giving a lecture. And, you know, at a certain point in the lecture, just like we have here, the curtains close or the curtains open. So the curtains opened and one person, I don't know if he was a disciple or not, he walked over to have darshan. You know, away from, so Prabhupada was speaking on the Vyasa and he came over to have darshan. And then the curtains closed and he came back and he sat down. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta directed to him and said, oh, so, you had darshan? He said, yes. He said, what did you see? He said, oh, we saw the deity is dressed very nicely, nice mukut, nice mala, everything there. And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, simply I exercise. Simply I exercise. You're hearing from the pure devotee, you don't understand what benefit you're getting. But you think that according to my cultural exposure, my cultural indoctrination, that somehow or other, you know, I'm going to get something more from looking at the deity with my material eyes, without premanjana charita bhakti lochana, without that salve of love, I'm going to get something? No, it doesn't work like that. So we just have to be simple at heart, not complicated. You know, we just have to try to minimize everything related to our material contamination, whatever it is. I'm attached to this, let me become detached. Let me try to minimize. This is austerity, not fasting. But shedding these anarthas, sarvapari vinir muktam tat paratvena nimalam, rishikesha rishikena. Give up all unwanted things. That's fasting. Can you do that? Someone says, no, I can fast 5 days without water. Okay. But can you put down your phone for 30 seconds or for 2 hours or 3 hours or shut it off for 5 days? 5 days, don't touch your phone. That's fasting, right? Don't engage in any social media activity for 5 days for Bhishma Panchak. Someone said to me, oh, I'm not eating sweets. I said, okay. That's not difficult. I'm not going to eat sweets. But don't engage. Don't log on to your social media account for 5 days. Okay, let's see who can do that. Or for Chaturmas, 4 months. 4 months. And just concentrate on my chanting and my hearing. So anyway, these things are there. You all know that. I'm preaching to the choir. You've all surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and you're all on the path of Bhakti Yoga. And so, your success is guaranteed if you simply have patience, firm conviction, and enthusiasm. Guaranteed. Process is so nice. Prabhupada gave us everything, so nice. But you have to be simple. You have to be satisfied. Somebody said, no, I don't like this diet. I have to have it. No. So find whatever it is that you need. Everything is there in Krishna's service without any extra endeavor. But you don't want to become like the Brahmin and the Kopins. Everybody knows that story. The Brahmana hung his kopins out. Everybody knows what kopins are, the loincloth that they do. Hung his kopins out in the line and whatever. Who took it? The rats took it? Can't remember. I think the rats took it. And he said, oh, I have to get a cat. In order to get a cat, he had to feed the cat. So he had to get milk for the cat. So then he had to get a cow. And then in order to maintain everything, then he had to get a wife. So all these things expand like that. So don't be like, don't worry about these small things. Everything will come. If you just concentrate. So say that Krishna is giving everything. He's so many examples. The elephant is getting everything he needs. 80 kgs a day. 80 kgs. Not even I can eat 80 kgs a day. And we used to eat a lot when we were brahmacharis. So let's put on our thinking caps, how we can clean the temple for the guests. Look at every area. Say, what's missing here? What can I do? What can I do with my extra time to help to maintain or create the environment that will attract a person who comes and says, wow, this place is so nice. And these devotees are so nice. And this prasadam is so nice. Boy, it makes it easier for them to give up all their material attachments. So that's our duty, to try to encourage them in this way by showing them how easy it is, not to burden them with, wow, I really miss going to the movies on Friday night, or, haven't been to a concert in 6 months. I don't know what to know. We used to go on concerts all the time on Sankirtan. It's concerts all over New York City. We used to every concert was there. I think we were at every concert that was playing. That was just Sankirtan. So if you really want to dovetail, yeah, that's there. You can do it. Just go on Sankirtan and surrender to it. It's not easy. It's not always easy. You're still going to have a lot of difficulty. But, those things are there. Some very interesting experiences in those Sankirtan adventures. Yeah, so. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I'm just appreciating your mood of surrender to Srila Prabhupada, and how actually it's actually, we make it difficult for ourselves to do that, and we have to go through so many difficulties. And I appreciated your point. I'm like, yeah, just maybe figure it out the second time. We're prone to mistakes as living entities. And I can just see that in my own path, that the mind wants to create arrangements to alleviate suffering, but it's with firm faith in what the acharyas are saying by Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Vishnu, which in the Bhakti-loka it's described that that's the regulative principles, is hearing and chanting and trying to remember Krishna. And that's actually a very simple way of learning to love God, but we want to go to therapy, we want to have a diet and all this stuff. And I realized that the more that I just have faith in the process, that my life is so easy.
Ultimately, dovetailing means that whatever I do should not result in less service. That's the key. One can engage, and if one feels that I have to follow a certain prescription, a certain course of exercise, or a certain diet, that's fine. Prabhupada gave us ample opportunity to do so. He just said, less eating, less sleeping. So if one wants to do his 15 minutes of yoga, Prabhupada said morning and evening. He said, no problem. He didn't say, no, don't do it. He said, yes, go ahead, do it. 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes even. What more is required? You know, we saw this even in Chinese tradition. You know, you can do Tai Chi. You have a long form and a short form. You can do your Tai Chi in 20 minutes or 15 minutes, or you can do Surya Namaskar. It's very simple. It's not complicated. You know, it's just that then we expand it. Well, and along with that, I have to do this, I have to do that. No. In your free time, if you're thinking that I have extra time to take care of something specifically, then as long as it doesn't interfere with your prescribed duties, that's the key. That's the example we should follow. That's the mood we should have. That, yes, we can do so many things, but it should not be at the neglect of our service. Because the service is our vehicle for advancing the spiritual life. It's not my diet. My diet is not the vehicle for advancing spirit. It's not my yoga. It's my service, my connection to the spiritual master and Krishna. Uninterrupted, unmotivated, unalloyed. That's the definition. So I think we'll end because it's getting quite long and there's a lot to do, and maybe even some of the devotees are hungry. And if there's anything left, it should come upstairs for the guests in the afternoon. So we have to just try to make that arrangement, make sure that there's some prasadam. We have the Charanamrita. The Charanamrita should be transferred up to the front desk so that the guests can at least get Charanamrita. And the cup, so it's very nice. Everyone gets prasadam. Okay, any other no, we're no more last minute. We have to go. Thank you very much for hearing the words of Śrī Caitanya-caritāmṛta and Līlāmrta. And please carry out your service in full faith, firm conviction. Srila Prabhupada ki.